The deadliest infectious disease of all time, the bubonic plague. Introduction. The bubonic plague, often referred to as the Black Death, stands as one of the most devastating pandemics in human history. The sheer scale of death and suffering it caused, coupled with its profound impact on the course of history, makes it a subject of immense significance. This account delves into the origins, spread, symptoms, societal impact, responses, and historical significance of the bubonic plague, highlighting why it is considered the deadliest infectious disease of all time. Origins and early history. The bubonic plague is caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. It is believed to have originated in Central Asia, with the earliest documented pandemics occurring in the Byzantine Empire. The first significant outbreak, known as the Plague of Justinian, began in 541 AD and recurred periodically until the 8th century. This early pandemic had profound effects on the Eastern Roman Empire, weakening it significantly. Spread to Europe. The most notorious outbreak of the bubonic plague, the Black Death, struck Europe in the mid-14th century. It is believed to have been brought to Europe by traders traveling along the Silk Road and through Mediterranean trade routes. The disease reached the shores of Europe around 1347, arriving via trading ships that docked in Sicilian ports. From there, it spread rapidly across the continent. Mechanism of transmission. Yersinia pestis is primarily transmitted through the bite of infected fleas that infest rodents, particularly rats. When an infected flea bites a human, the bacterium enters the bloodstream and travels to the lymph nodes, where it multiplies. The bacteria cause the lymph nodes to become inflamed, forming characteristic swellings known as buboes, hence the name bubonic plague. The disease can also be transmitted through direct contact with infected bodily fluids and, in rare cases, via respiratory droplets from a person with pneumonic plague, a more severe form of the disease. Symptoms and progression. The symptoms of the bubonic plague typically appear within 2 to 6 days after exposure. The initial symptoms include sudden onset of fever, chills, headache, muscle aches, and fatigue. As the disease progresses, the infected individual develops painful, swollen lymph nodes, buboes, usually in the groin, armpit, or neck. These buboes can become necrotic and turn black, a feature that contributed to the disease being called the Black Death. In addition to buboes, other symptoms may include nausea and vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, seizures. If left untreated, the infection can spread to the bloodstream, causing septicemic plague, or to the lungs, causing pneumonic plague. Both forms are highly fatal. Septicemic plague can lead to disseminated intravascular coagulation (DIC), resulting in widespread bleeding and organ failure. Pneumonic plague, if not treated promptly, is almost always fatal and can be transmitted from person to person through respiratory droplets. Societal impact. The Black Death had an unprecedented impact on 14th-century European society. It is estimated that the pandemic killed between 30 to 60 of Europe's population, with some regions experiencing even higher mortality rates. This massive loss of life had profound economic, social, and cultural repercussions. Economic consequences. The dramatic reduction in the population led to severe labor shortages, which in turn caused wages to rise. The demand for agricultural labours gave surviving peasants greater bargaining power, leading to improved working conditions and, in some cases, the eventual decline of the feudal system. The decrease in population also resulted in a surplus of goods, causing prices to fall and altering economic structures. Social and psychological effects. The Black Death instilled widespread fear and panic. Many people believed the plague was a divine punishment for sins, leading to religious fervor and sometimes extreme measures such as flagellant movements, where individuals would publicly whip themselves to atone for sins. The fear of contagion led to the isolation and persecution of minority groups, particularly Jews, who were often scapegoated and blamed for causing the plague by poisoning wells. The breakdown of social norms was evident in the abandonment of the sick and dying, as family members and neighbors avoided contact to protect themselves. Mass graves became common as traditional burial practices were overwhelmed by the sheer number of deaths. Cultural shifts. The plague had lasting effects on European art, literature, and culture. Themes of death and the macabre became prevalent, as seen in works such as the Danse Macabre Dance of Death and in literature like Giovanni Boccaccio's The Decameron, which describes a group of people trying to escape the plague by retreating to the countryside. Responses and treatments during the Black Death, medical knowledge was rudimentary, and treatments were often based on superstition and misinformation. Common responses included quarantine and isolation. Authorities implemented quarantines, isolating ships and travelers for periods of up to 40 days, hence the term quarantine, to prevent the spread of the disease. Entire towns and cities were sometimes sealed off to contain outbreaks. Religious practices. People turned to religion for solace, with some participating in processions and prayers in the hope of divine intervention. However, some religious gatherings inadvertently facilitated the spread of the plague. Medical treatments. Medieval medical practices were largely ineffective against the plague. Treatments included bloodletting, applying poultices to buboes, and the use of herbal remedies. Some physicians recommended burning aromatic herbs to purify the air, believing that miasma, bad air, was responsible for spreading the disease. Modern understanding and treatment. Today, we have a much better understanding of the bubonic plague and how to treat it. Antibiotics such as streptomycin, gentamicin, and doxycycline are effective if administered early. Public health measures, including controlling rodent populations and using insecticides to kill fleas, have greatly reduced the incidence of plague. Long-term effects on society. End of feudalism. The labor shortages caused by the Black Death contributed to the decline of feudalism in Europe. As survivors demanded higher wages and better working conditions, the rigid feudal hierarchy began to break down, paving the way for more modern economic systems. Public health advances. The Black Death spurred the development of public health measures. Cities began to implement better sanitation practices and establish health boards to monitor and control outbreaks. These early public health efforts laid the groundwork for future advances in epidemiology and disease control. Renaissance. The societal upheaval caused by the plague indirectly contributed to the rise of the Renaissance. The reduction in population led to a surplus of wealth, which was invested in the arts and education. Additionally, the questioning of traditional authority, including the Church, fostered a spirit of inquiry and innovation that characterized the Renaissance. Comparisons to other epidemics. While the bubonic plague is often considered the deadliest infectious disease due to its high mortality rate and profound impact on history, other diseases have also caused significant devastation. Smallpox, caused by the variola virus, had a mortality rate of about 30 and was responsible for millions of deaths before it was eradicated in 1980 through a global vaccination campaign. It had a particularly devastating impact on indigenous populations in the Americas following European colonization. Influenza pandemics, particularly the Spanish flu of 1918 to 1919, have caused widespread mortality. The Spanish flu infected about one-third of the world's population and killed an estimated 50 million people, more than the total number of deaths in World War I. HIV/AIDS. Since the early 1980s, HIV/AIDS has claimed the lives of over 32 million people worldwide. While advances in treatment have improved life expectancy for those living with HIV, the epidemic continues to affect millions globally. COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic, caused by the novel coronavirus SARS-CoV-2, has had a profound impact on the modern world. As of 2024, it has caused millions of deaths, significant economic disruption, and lasting changes to daily life and global health policies. Lessons learned. The history of the bubonic plague and other epidemics teaches us the importance of public health measures, scientific research, and international cooperation in combating infectious diseases. Understanding the past can help us better prepare for and respond to future outbreaks, potentially saving millions of lives. Conclusion. The bubonic plague, or Black Death, remains the deadliest infectious disease of all time due to its staggering death toll and lasting impact on human society. By examining its origins, transmission, symptoms, societal effects, and responses, we gain valuable insights into the challenges and triumphs of humanity in the face of devastating pandemics. Through improved medical knowledge and public health practices, we continue to build resilience against the ever-present threat of infectious diseases.